Welcome to B Squared, a show about creating impact. Our use of the squared symbol is a metaphor for being more than an addition to someone's life, but being exponential in it. We, along with our guests, create a discussion around quotes, statements, and ideas to empower, educate, and inspire others. Pete Ferguson is CBO of BHS Productions, an adult and youth development specialist, entrepreneur, and empowerment speaker. I'm Adam Bratten, a professional trainer, entrepreneur, professional photographer, speaker, and a local actor and model here in Denver, Colorado.
We opened here at DIA March 13th of 1996.
In 24 years, plenty of souls have passed through these chairs.
It's a warm place in a otherwise busy, stressful environment.
Because here, it's about more than just shoes.
We really owe the reason that we've stayed in business is to building relationships with customers, listening to them. That's the biggest thing that we do.
But when COVID-19 hit, those conversations went silent.
We had to make the decision to close.
For 2.5 months, the longest stretch this business, the owner likened to a family, has ever shut down.
I feel responsible, for them.
Employees like Jonathan Soto.
Been here since I was 14 years old.
He's shined shoes here for 2 decades, at times alongside his father. The coronavirus took more than Jonathan's job.
I did lost my dad to COVID. That was a tough time. I love taking care of people. That's what I do. And he taught me a lot of that.
Something that he is now, once again, putting into practice.
When they come by, they're like, "Oh, you're open!"
Executive Shine is now back to shining and conversing.
It will come back because people are really longing to be connected again. So it's just felt so great to see people that we haven't seen in months, and we can't hug them, but we can, elbow bump.
And that after going through the hardest times they've ever faced,
that there's hope, that you can come back, and the impact you have on people is really important, and to never forget that.
At DIA, I'm Jason Grenauer, Denver 7.
And today we're very honored to have a special guest. She is a CEO and has 33 years of experience of leading Executive Shine, which is a nationally recognized corporation. It's been featured in Forbes and the Harvard Business Review. It's a team of over 100 professionals that shine shoes and add value to people's lives. In fact, one of the taglines or the trademark line she uses is "Shoe shines, powered by love," and also it's all about love. And today we have with us Jill Wright. She's also a speaker and author. She served on the Denver Women's Commission, and she helps entrepreneurs and people across the country. So we just want to welcome Jill Wright to B Squared.
Welcome, Jill.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. You guys are amazing.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. So thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, so just to kick things off and get things started, can you just tell us a little bit about your purpose and what motivates you and kind of gets you going?
My purpose is really people, and my purpose is really to reflect potential in people. So if you sum that up in one word, it's really about love, and just to expand their vision of themselves and their confidence, and to have people create what they're meant to create in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, and that's powerful. When you talked about people, I think that leads directly, if you know, the premise of the show is we base it on a quote. And we that's a quote or a theme or an idea. And when you talked about people, our quote today is from Brene Brown. And I don't think we could have thought of anybody more relevant for you. And she speaks about stories. And our quote for today is, you either walk inside the story and own it, or you stand outside your story and hustle for your worthiness. And so can you, when you hear that quote and you hear that statement, how does that resonate with you? How does that speak to you?
Well, I think that there's two things about story. There's your real story, and then what she talks about as creating your worthiness. There's your public story, and then there's your story about your worthiness. So for me, I really want to build people up so that they have a powerful sense of worthiness, so that they know that they have everything that they need within them to achieve whatever it is that they want to do in the world. Mm. And I think that when you talk about being inside a story, I think that's kind of ongoing. And I think that they have to be aware and really tap into who they are and what type of story that they want to own and who they want to be in the world. So, and that's always evolving and getting more, but if you can help people own their story and feel worthy at the same time, then I think you have a real recipe for success for them. And Brene Brown, thank you for choosing her, because she is like my hero. I love her.
Well, no, and definitely as a researcher and just as an individual, as a storyteller, it is phenomenal. And we talked a little bit before, and going along with that, could you maybe share a little bit with our audience about your story and what propelled you to this point? There were so many points in it that were just so impactful. I think it would be relevant for our audience to hear some of that, if you're willing to share.
Sure. When I graduated, I went to traditional school, then I went to a non-traditional school where I graduated early because I wasn't one of those kind of people that fit in any kind of a box. And so I graduated high school when I was 15. My birthday's in June, so I wasn't quite 16 yet. And I was able to achieve being salutatorian in my class, which I was shocked about, but I was really very proud. And I wanted it to be a surprise for my father. And so I had told my stepmom, and we had kept it a secret. And then she ended up telling my dad and ruining my secret. And we got in a big fight about that. And then I remember vividly, I was babysitting at our neighbor's house, and my dad came over, and the kids were sleeping, and we sat at the kitchen table, and he sat across from me and he said, I have to choose between you and Patricia, and I choose her. And at 15 years old, that is just a devastating experience. And so after that, when the people came home, I went and I packed up my room, and I remember vividly being alone and saying, okay, God, you're going to be my new dad, and it's going to be me and you. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but I really need your help here. And I moved into my mom's, and my mom was very supportive and always really believed in me. So that was good, but it still never overcame that hurt from my dad. And so he told me, you'll never achieve anything without me. And so for me, that was a very big driving force in my life. I was determined to succeed at whatever I did because of that one statement.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's powerful. Powerful.
Yeah, and I just knowing a little bit about you and reading some of the things that were written in Forbes and just your business, it seems like you really embody what, like you said, helping other people and kind of seeing how they reflect their gifts back to them, right? And I was reading in Sean Acor's book, The Happiness Advantage, right? He said the people who can most successfully get themselves up off the mat are those who define themselves not by what has happened to them, but by what they can make out of what has happened to them. And it sounds like just your story that you've shared, there was two ways you could go, right? It was either, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to prove this person wrong and I'm going to be a success, or, which is what you've done, or you could have went the other way and been like, oh, there's nothing I can do. So can you tell us a little bit more about just that experience and what led you on that trajectory versus another trajectory, and then how you use that personal experience, and I'm sure you were able to see that in other people, and then how do you inspire and encourage that in others?
Well, I think that at that point, with my father, I had a choice, and I certainly wasn't going to let him win. I certainly was competitive enough to be determined that I was going to, win that battle, and I was going to show him, which, like I said earlier, is not a motivation I would recommend. So what I've really dedicated my life to, and the reason I'm so passionate about people, is because I believe that the belief and believing in people has real power. And I believe that if you see the potential within someone, you can really help them see that for themselves. And in areas that, when you swim in it, you don't recognize it. And so one of the things that I do is really to focus on that and to help them see, areas that they haven't had that kind of perspective on before. And so let me just answer the second part of it. So this, refresh me on the second part of that question then. So I chose, I guess, to make sure that I would succeed no matter what. And I also chose that I would do my best in my life not to have anybody feel the way that I felt. And I would make sure that I gave that gift of belief to other people so that they could then believe in themselves and really achieve what they're meant to do and have that sense of fulfillment about what they do every day.
And I think as you talked about that, I think it helps me reference a quote that I Adam and those people that know me, it's my favorite of all time. And it's one that is just kind of my moniker, so to speak. It's by Maya Angelou. And it's often I forget what people have said. I've forgotten what people have done, but I always remember how people have made me feel. And you spoke about your father, but you've also spoken about other relationships of how people have made you feel and how that served as the catalyst for you to achieve. And I was really taken by the point that you said, I wouldn't wish that to be the catalyst for people, the relationship that you had with your father, like that, to be the fuel and the fire. But oftentimes we sit back and we hear those stories of, it was that lack of, or this person told me I couldn't do those things. And I struggle with that a little bit, because as I talk about a lot is like, those relationships do matter. And I always look at it as relationship A's, as I talked to you a little bit about earlier, is, there's those people in your life that provide you access, awareness, advocacy, or assist you in a certain way. And we have people that oftentimes be like, oh, I've got 50, it was my mom, my dad, my music teacher, my coach, this, that, and the other. But there's people in the room that would be like, I don't have those people. And then you ask, tell us who those people are that withheld those access, awareness, advocacy, assessed you negatively. And they can rattle off people left and right. And we don't want that to be the fuel in relationships. So how do you come from a strength-based perspective of letting people know, like you talked about, reflecting back your gifts? How do you empower people to look at the strengths of others, but also look at their own strengths to serve as the catalyst, not the deficits or not the things that they're challenged by?
I think that I always try to steer conversations to focus on what we want, and focus on where we want to go and what tools we have to achieve those things. So when you're looking at someone, you look at them and you can help them see, well, you have this and you have this and you have this, and look at how great that is. And look at how much you have available that you don't even recognize. So you're already almost, 3/4 of the way there. So helping them to see what they've already got, because I think that when people, like I say, when people swim in it, they don't recognize it. Yeah. So helping them to be able to see that. And I have this analogy that I use, and it's just about ice cream. And I look at people like they're just flavors of ice cream, and all of the different experiences and people, relationships, things that happen to their life, they all add to that richness of the flavor of ice cream. And nobody has the same flavor. And there's no flavor that's bad. I mean, plain vanilla is still delicious. So if people can understand that they're perfect already how they are, and that they've got so much already of what they need, and so we can just develop those things to help them go further in the areas that they want to go.
Awesome. What I like how you said, no, ice cream is not bad for those lactose intolerant people. I mean, I apologize.
There's even dairy-free.
Ice cream, we're telling you, stay away from the dairy. It can be bad for you, but we get what you're saying. No.
They got all kinds of dairy-free flavors now that are delicious.
I'm a traditionalist. I got to stay with the real stuff. You got to have milk in it. But one of the things you did talk about, you talked about just sometimes we're too close. Sometimes we're too close to it, and people need, and it's just more of a statement than anything, is that, you're right. Sometimes we're right up close to the portrait and the picture, and we don't see the full thing. And then as we step back, you start seeing the glory and the magnificence of it in your artwork. And so it's kind of like that artist, or that analogy is, if you're sitting right up next to it, and you're just your eyes, you can only see so much, but your vision expands as you back up and see everything. So I like how you provide that expansion for people, and understanding what their strengths are, what talents, what gifts they bring to the table, or as we always say, unleashing their potential. So.
Well, and I love what you said too about, that's one of my favorite quotes as well, the Maya Angelou. It is so important how you make people feel, because when you are, something I also say is strongest energy wins. So if you come from a place of love and you are open, and Brene Brown uses vulnerability, but vulnerability, intimidates people a little bit. Sometimes I think they go in and they're like, who wants to be vulnerable? Oh, please, me. You know what I'm saying? But if you just say, you know, who is open and who is authentic, and everybody wants to sign up to be open and authentic. That's not so scary. So I think when you make people feel safe and you create an environment of trust where they can just explore and try things out and feel out different parts of themselves and try that on and see how that feels, that they feel that way, and then they can, you know, it's like watering a garden. You know, that's the fuel, I think, that allows that to really grow.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The thing that resonated when I was walking through my house, I was this morning in getting ready, I looked over it, and sometimes, you know, you have things that are in your life that just almost become they're there so often you forget about them, right? It's just like, oh, I don't notice that anymore. But today, I had bought this thing a while back, and it says, lie down at night being able to say, I have made at least one person a little wiser, a little happier, or a little better, right? And you know, that's one of the things that I think that I try to do on a daily basis, because you talked about earlier how important relationships are, right? Even if I disagree with somebody, I still feel like there's a level of mutual respect and understanding I can have, even if I walk away from there, you know, agreeing to disagree, right? And I think that helps add value to the other person. It adds respect. You know, they can disagree with me and know that, oh, okay, well, he's still not a bad person, right? Or he's not going to call me names or whatever. But leading into that, I'm curious what, like, I think when we first spoke about having you come on the show, you shared a story about this person that was probably your most favorite success story. I don't know if you remember who that was, but I wondered if you could share that, because I think that really, again, encompasses and embodies, you know, what you're about, and reflecting somebody's talents, right? And helping them see more in themselves and maybe what they feel that they have to give.
Yeah, absolutely. People ask what my greatest achievement is, and my answer is not my business, it's my people. And the amazing people that have grown out of this environment of trust and honor and respect and fun and love. They've grown now to be teachers for me. I mean, I admire them so much for the human beings, the great human beings that they've become. And my favorite story is my manager at the airport here is one of the most incredible men that I've ever met. And when he started working for me, he had such a stutter, a speech impediment, that he couldn't even complete a sentence. And so we had to, you know, work with him and help him be able to, you know, start to talk. And then he's worked for me since he was 14 years old. So now he's, you know, 35, has kids, is just an amazing human. But to see the shift in him from someone who believed he could, like, you can do this, you can do this, you're just fine, you did great, you know, to complete sentences and start to speak and start to enunciate words better. And now you would never know. I mean, he has no speech impediment whatsoever. And I think it's such a beautiful story. And because of his not speaking, he has also developed this absolutely amazing sense of the intuition. And so it's interesting when people don't express in one area, they develop in another. You know, like the stories they talk about blind people and how they can hear things and just all of those things. So everyone has these unique gifts within them, and to see people grow to that degree and just become great people, and because they've been honored for the genius that was in them and has evolved, then they do that for other people. So he makes a difference in so many lives now, and that's just something that I'm really, really proud of.
Well, I like how you said that the story resonates, because I'm a big fan of Steve Harvey. And if you ever listen and hear his story, he talks about he had a tremendous stuttering problem when he was younger, growing up. And he talks about how he was empowered or depowered, I'd like to say, by individuals from a paper that he submitted in school and said, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I want to be on TV. And his teachers gave him an F. You know, like, you can't, nobody from this neighborhood comes from here, and this, that, and the other. And long story short, I remember he brought it home. His mom was like, your dad's going to have to deal with this. You're embarrassing us. And his dad was like, you can be anything that you want. And he went back and he said he made a commitment. He buys that teacher a flat screen TV every year so she can watch him on TV. And he speaks to that.
Awesome.
So when you talk about that, empowering but also depowering, I think it's tremendous. You did talk about something too that I wanted to go back to, and I think it goes back to our quote, by Brene Brown, when you talk about you either walk inside your story, own it, or you stand outside your story and hustle for the worthiness of it. You talked about safe spaces, and you talked about being brave. And I oftentimes refer to as safe space. There's safe spaces for a lot of people. There's safe spaces for all of us to go, a police station, a fire station, but we need brave spaces. We need spaces that people can be brave within. And so, can you talk a little bit about, like, when you're walking inside that story of yourself, that courage that people have to show to hold on to that story? Because sometimes chasing that hustle is a little bit easier, because it's easier to be courageous to chase after something you may not get, but to hold on to something that you have oftentimes takes courage when you get disappointment and frustration, or just being true to who you are. So can you speak a little bit to what role courage has in people's stories?
I think that it takes a lot of courage to be who you really are. And I think people do need those brave spaces to support that. And for me, I think you have to just, I think is this something that I can do, that I believe in, or is this something that I would regret? And I think you have to have the courage to stand for something. When we got that article this spring in the Harvard Business Review, I was so excited, because I was like, finally, businesses that stand for love, that have the courage to stand for love in business, finally got acknowledged. So I was really excited about that. And it takes courage to stand for what you believe in. And I think but it makes you a better person. You have to dig deep, but that's what makes you great. And you have to decide that you're the only person that really lives with you. So what do you really want to live with? And when I think you base your decisions on those factors, then I think that takes courage. It's it's easy to follow the crowd, but that's not fulfilling. And then I think that causes you to start to doubt yourself. And then I think that's when the unworthiness starts to creep in. But when you stand for something and you know who you are and you know about standing for something that you feel is right, then I think that you build up I think courage is almost like a muscle that you exercise and you build up and you do a little bit every day. You're not born with, here, you are the courageous person. We bestow this upon you. I think that you earn it and you build it within yourself. And then hopefully you can find people around you that are like-minded. And I think then you also build group courage and group pride together. So I think those are things about like being on a team. I think athletic things are so good for youth, because I think that's where you learn a lot of those things. It takes courage to press on when you feel like you're, down or you don't want to do it today. It takes courage to choose your attitude. And so I think that maybe is the biggest thing, is the courage to choose the attitude.
Wow. No, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really great. I've throughout this whole time, I'm just sitting here listening to you and where your story started from. Like it almost seems like, okay, I'm gonna defy the odds. I'm gonna prove this person wrong. And you yourself have been a champion and an example and an encourager for so many people. I'm curious, as Pete talked about earlier, we have all these type A people in our life, our type A's, right? I'm curious, who are some of the people that you personally have been encouraged by, that you actually have been on the other side of receiving versus giving that encouragement?
I think my mom, she always made us believe that there was nothing we couldn't do, in spite of the influence of my dad. And one of the really great things about Shining Shoes is that I don't just own the shoe shine, like I work and shine shoes, and because it allows me to have really great connections with some really really powerful people that have believed in me. One of them is Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, who I've known and been friends with for 30 years. He wrote about us, or talked about us on one of his CD series. And just to be acknowledged by someone who I, really respected, made me really feel like I had achieved something, that I actually was adding value. And to get that validation when you build relationships with different high level executives, and they tell you that you create a intimacy, you create the human connection comfort zone with them, that they can share their authentic experiences with you, and they tell you, you have no idea what you've meant to me, and what you're doing here is so much beyond what you think it is, that you have such impact in the world, and having people believe in me in that way, though, through those different experiences has really been, it's validating. It helps, to your earlier point, I think it helps to build your courage to keep going, even when it's tough. If you don't feel like getting up in the morning, you might think, but so and so believes in me, and because they believe in me, I can't let them down. So I think just even simple things throughout your life, the simple people that you meet every day can give you those feelings. I have customers that come up and they just give you the biggest hug and the biggest greetings, and they say, "Oh, it's so good to see you. Like I've missed you. You have such a positive impact on my life." And I'm thinking, I do? Wow. I'm honored, and it makes you realize that all the little things you do every day, and even just listening, that really matters. So I hope does that answer your question?
No, that was fantastic, and some of the takeaways that I took from that just is that we talk about being exponential to somebody's life, not just being an addition, and you definitely hit on what that is, and part of that is that acknowledgement. I want to add that A to one of my A's. I just want to fill my whole report card with the A's I didn't get when I was in school. I didn't get to be the speaker, and recognizing that capacity, but that acknowledgement helps make you more than just an addition. It made you feel exponential, and it allowed you to give back to other people. So prior to this ending and kind of wrapping up, I wanted to ask you a question. You talked about shining shoes, and you elaborated a little bit on that, but whose shoes, if you got the opportunity to shine and have that conversation with or receive acknowledgement from, would you dream of, alive, current, past? I'm just curious, in my own way, and maybe our audience is, of whose shoes would you dream of shining?
Wow. No one has ever asked me that before. People that are my heroes. Wow. Brene Brown, I would give my right arm to hang out with. Even if she doesn't have shoes, I don't care if it's tennis shoes.
Hey, we'll put it out there right now. Brene Brown, can you go ahead and line up an opportunity to have Miss Jill go ahead and shine your shoes, all right?
Absolutely. Maya Angelou for sure. Oprah for sure. Another person. Oh, now I'm gonna. Who wrote Think and Grow Rich?
Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
That's another one.
Wow.
Yeah. I would love to sit and have a conversation with Napoleon Hill.
Well, those are all great.
Norman Vincent Peale. I couldn't get Norman Vincent Peale out of my head. He's one too, but Napoleon Hill was who I was really thinking of.
Well, if any of those people that are alive, that are listening, please, they would can set up a time to have you do that. But I would also, in my head too, I just think about, and what I'd like our audience to think about is whose shoes would you shine to provide that acknowledgement, to be exponential. And so I think it goes both ways. We'd love to shine somebody's shoes, but whose shoes can we shine to give that acknowledgement to other people? So thank you for sharing yours. So with that, Adam?
Yeah, I just, just to piggyback on the, hopefully I feel like I'm going to get emotional right now. I'm kind of a softie usually, but, I just, I hear you talking about, you know, shining people's shoes, and it just really reminds me of just a servant leader, right? Of much like Jesus washed people's feet, right? You're not washing their feet, you're shining their shoes, right? It seems like something that's could be below you or beneath you, right? But there's a certain amount of dignity and respect, I think, that you're giving to people in the conversations that you're having. You're a servant leader, right? And there's something to say about that. I think that goes a long way to establishing humility, to establishing a relationship. And man, I didn't expect this to hit me that way, but that's I just think that's so awesome, and I never really made that connection to the shoes until just right now. Even your book, was it a book, Soul to Soul, I think, that you've written, so there's a connection that happens when you basically, you're on a knee or you're on a stool and you're shining somebody's shoes and you're giving them that attention. So I just think that's great. But as we wrap up, as Peter said, we always start the show with a quote, and we always like to end with one. But the ending with one comes from you. So is there a statement or a quote or something that you would just like to leave the audience with that resonates with you now, or maybe speaks to you, that might speak to our audience?
One of the things that has evolved from our years of working with people and serving people is, what does love look like here? Mm-hmm. Like, what does love look like for this person in front of me right now? Mm-hmm. And if you can bring yourself there and really think, how can I positively impact this person? What does love look like? So it takes all of different forms. And so that's something that is our big focus point at work, is with every new person that comes into our life, or that comes and sits in the chair, we ask ourselves internally, okay, what does love look like for this person? Sometimes it's listening. Sometimes it's speaking life into someone. Sometimes it's giving encouragement. Sometimes it's just being present and just really tapping in and being there for the person in front of you, and just being fluid and going with whatever the situation is calling for right now.
Well, Jill, it has truly been an honor and a privilege getting to dialogue with you and virtually meet you, so to speak.
I love you guys.
I look forward to the opportunity of just seeing your work and shining your shoes, and you don't want to see my feet, so we'll just get mine off the table.
I have seen it all.
That's what my podiatrist said, and then he was like, whoa. But just when you talked about just what does love look like here, is, I think it's being authentic, it's being intentional, it's understanding the moment, but it's also being willing, as something that's kind of been a theme for me and some of the scholars and adults that I've worked with this year, is how do you walk together? And if you can see what does that love look like here, and then that shining of the shoes, it's not you're doing a service, but you're walking together with that individual and contributing to their walk. So again, thank you. And with that being said, how do people find out more about Jill Wright and the things that you're doing? I know you have podcasts coming up, you have Soul to Soul. How can they just get to be, how can you add more and be exponential to their lives? Social media?
We have our Executive Shine Facebook page. I have soul2soulpodcast.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. All of those things. I'm learning through this experience to be more social media present,
Right.
because I'm a real human connection person.
Exactly.
And so, getting into all those online platforms has not been my strength until the past couple months. We're learning to do more of that, but I'm happy to reach out. And if anyone wants to contact us via Facebook. They can reach out to me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, any of those things. I'd be happy to connect.
Awesome. We'll definitely have that at the end of the show, of links and ways you can get in touch with you. And again, I don't speak for Adam. I think I do speak for him, and all of us, is that we are just really, really fortunate and humbled and honored that you were willing to join us and being a part of